Why is China constructing 3 massive ships in the middle of a desert? This seems extraordinarily unusual, and no other nation has ever attempted something quite like it. Take a close look at these images. These structures resemble aircraft carriers in every detail. An aircraft carrier serves as a powerful machine, essentially a floating airbase equipped with runways, control towers, and advanced missile systems. It allows for rapid responses against potential threats. However, aircraft carriers require water to operate. Yet just 4 months ago, in March 2025, the US Naval Institute released satellite images revealing that China is building these new aircraft carriers in a desert. This is the Taklamakan Desert, China's largest, spanning 350,000 square kilometers, a vast barren expanse filled only with endless sand and echoing silence. In this harsh environment, the Chinese military has not just created one aircraft carrier, but an entire naval fleet. China's military has constructed replicas of a US Navy aircraft carrier and other US warships. We must assume China intended for us to notice this in the desert. Now examine this second satellite image. This structure looks exactly like a warship, and in the third image, an entire naval port appears. For comparison, consider India's deep naval port on a Mauritian island established as a military base. China's naval port looks remarkably similar to India's. This raises significant concerns for India because the Taklamakan Desert lies only 200 to 250 kilometers from the line of actual control along the India-China border. The rivalry between India and China is well known. Beyond that, the United States is deeply alarmed by this development. These satellite images were published by the US Naval Institute itself, where they acknowledge that China's structures are exact replicas of US naval ships. The first structure matches the shape of the US's latest and most advanced aircraft carrier, the Gerald R. Ford class. Its length is identical at about 337 meters. The second structure resembles the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, with every feature aligning perfectly. The forward weapon system on the ship's nose, vertical launch systems just behind and near the end, and a helipad at the rear. It's a carbon copy of the US destroyer. Finally, China's third aircraft carrier closely matches the Nimitz class with similar radar systems and overall shape, except for the size where China compromised slightly, making it half as long at 173 meters. Pay close attention because this mystery is about to become even more intriguing. If you look beyond the Taklamakan Desert into the Indo-Pacific region, you'll see these red dots representing the US's elite warships and aircraft carriers deployed near the South China Sea to counter China. Interestingly, among this entire fleet, the 2 most formidable vessels are the USS Nimitz aircraft carrier and the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, precisely the 2 warships China is replicating in the Taklamakan Desert. This is no coincidence. It's a calculated strategy by China, but the puzzle doesn't end there. If you scrutinize these satellite images, you'll notice a curved line right beside the aircraft carrier resembling a railway track. The US Navy observed 2 odd details about this potential railway line. First, one end leads into a building, but the other abruptly stops. Why build a half-finished railway in an isolated desert? It connects neither to mainland China nor to any Chinese military base. Second, if it were truly a railway, it could have been straight. Why make it curved like this? As you can see, numerous enigmas remain unsolved, especially considering China's history, which has always been shrouded in secrecy. To understand China's mindset, we first need to explore what pressures are driving these actions. What specific threats does China perceive from which countries? The world knows China has 2 major vulnerabilities today: India and the South China Sea. China claims territories like Aksai Chin and Arunachal Pradesh as its own, leading to historical conflicts. But China's other significant insecurity is the South China Sea, often called the next global powerhouse due to its emerging economies, deep-sea minerals, and strategic trade routes. That's why you see the 9-dash line, China's self-marked border, claiming the entire area, including islands and nations like Taiwan, as sovereign territory. However, according to the 2016 International Court of Arbitration ruling, China has no rightful claim over these territories. Despite this, China has built at least 27 artificial man-made islands in the region, deploying military forces to expand its dominance, especially in the Spratly and Paracel archipelagos, where major Chinese military bases exist. In fact, if any country accidentally crosses China's imaginary borders, the Chinese Navy responds aggressively, claiming it poses a threat to national security. Alright, now the Chinese helicopter issues warnings immediately. China insists on compliance right away. Yes, the South China Sea is China's most sensitive area. Unfortunately for China, the USA keeps a watchful eye on this very vulnerability. As seen recently, the US has deployed an entire naval fleet in the South China Sea. Moreover, the US regularly provokes China by conducting sudden exercises. In May 2025, the US and Philippines held drills in the South China Sea. Just 3 days ago, the US conducted more military exercises in the Jamboree region directly opposite China. This time, the US went further by asking its allied nations who would support it in a potential conflict with China in the region. Essentially, the US continually challenges China toward a full-scale confrontation. China has been infuriated by repeated US sailings near the islands it occupies and controls in the South China Sea. 2 US carrier groups conducted joint exercises there. The exercises came shortly after China condemned the sailing of the destroyer USS John S. McCain. It accuses the United States of deliberately stirring tensions in the region. Of course, China isn't backing down. We've already discussed China's unauthorized claims and assertive military advancements in the South China Sea. But could this Cold War between the US and China be a major reason China is duplicating US warships and aircraft carriers? Absolutely yes. China is preparing for confrontation, but it's a strategy of deception. These ships aren't real. They're fake dummies of American warships created to generate an illusion for the world. In these satellite images from China, what do you see? At least 20 fighter jets positioned for action. But what if I told you this entire Chinese airbase is completely fabricated, and all 20 fighter jets are mere props? These tanks, aircraft carriers, decks, and defense systems are all part of a deception technique. Deception strategies are nothing new for China. They're a long-standing tactic. The earliest documented case dates back about 2,300 years to 342 BCE. During this era, the Zhou dynasty ruled China, but had weakened, allowing 7 states to declare independence: Qi, Chu, Yan, Han, Zhao, Wei, and Qin, known as the 7 Warring States, due to their constant battles for expansion. Among them, Qi and Wei were bitter rivals with frequent skirmishes. One day, their rivalry escalated into a major clash. Qi faced Wei's general Peng Huan, who commanded a vast and powerful army. Qi's forces, on the other hand, were much smaller, but their commander was no ordinary leader. He was Sun Bin, descendant of China's greatest military strategist, Sun Tzu. Sun Bin knew his army couldn't match Wei directly, so he devised a plan: pretend to flee in fear. It sounds counterproductive, right? But this deception proved highly successful. Sun Bin ordered his 100,000 soldiers to advance toward the enemy, each carrying a torch. Seeing 100,000 torches, Wei assumed battle was imminent and advanced. The next night, Sun Bin lit torches for only 50,000 soldiers, and the following night for just 30,000. Wei's general Peng Huan concluded that half of Qi's army had fled in fear, so he confidently led his full force into a valley. There, Sun Bin had set a trap. On a tree in the valley was inscribed that Peng Huan would meet his end there. As he lit a torch to read it, Qi's forces received the signal and overwhelmed Wei's army with arrows. This became known as the Battle of Maling, China's oldest documented deception tactic. Such techniques weren't limited to ancient China. During World War II, the Allies created an illusion that forced even the mighty German army to face defeat: the Ghost Army illusion. In January 1944, the Allies planned to invade Normandy, a German-occupied territory, but direct confrontation wouldn't succeed. Under Operation Fortitude, a secret US Army unit called the Ghost Army was formed, consisting of artists, sound engineers, and actors. Their sole task was to craft an illusion making Germans believe the invasion targeted Pas-de-Calais, not Normandy. They built fake inflatable rubber tanks, dummy ships, hollow tents, and an entire phony army brigade that broadcast sonic and radio signals to simulate 20,000 to 30,000 troops advancing. Believe it or not, they even positioned fake soldiers, and aerial surveillance made their camps appear real by lighting campfires at night. This convinced Germany the real assault would come at Calais, so they stationed forces there instead of Normandy. As a result, the Allies' actual invasion of Normandy became straightforward. One illusion shifted the course of the entire war as Germany suffered successive setbacks afterward. That's how powerful a deception strategy can be when used correctly. So is the mystery finally solved? Is it that simple? Is China creating deception dummies to intimidate enemies like America and India? Well, yes and no. Actually, when the US Naval Institute investigated further, they found additional satellite images showing impacts right at the center of these ship structures. This revealed they aren't ships at all, but dummy target sites built in the Taklamakan Desert back in 2018. That year, China's DF-21D missile was in its final testing phase, desperately needing a test site. But China's newly developed DF-21D missile isn't ordinary. It's one of the world's first anti-ship ballistic missiles designed to precisely strike moving aircraft carriers, those floating cities. Such technology only reached the US last year. Ideally, testing would involve sea trials, but that requires issuing warnings to neighboring countries each time to avoid hitting civilian or cargo vessels. Additionally, after an impact, nations like the US or India could recover debris to analyze China's missile technology, potentially exposing secrets or weaknesses, something China wants to prevent. Therefore, they needed a secluded spot to test accuracy impact angles and real scenario damage without interference. That's why China transformed the Taklamakan Desert into a simulated Indo-Pacific zone, complete with multiple target sites and a dummy naval port. Specifically, these 3 ship replicas were chosen because they represent the US Navy's most advanced warships already deployed in the South China Sea. In essence, China is conducting missile trials directly aimed at the US 7th Fleet, a Ford-class aircraft carrier replica 2 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, and a Nimitz-class carrier model. These aren't 3D ships, but flat metal outlines with vertical poles embedded. The poles feature infrared imaging and millimeter-wave radar sensors that track every missile impact signature. This helps China identify where strikes would cause maximum damage to American warships. By practicing on multiple models, the Chinese military can uncover all vulnerabilities in the US Navy. Moreover, that curved line we mentioned resembling a railway track is actually designed to simulate the zigzag and curved movements of an aircraft carrier. This allows China to test if their DF-21D anti-ship ballistic missile can accurately hit a high-speed moving target. Just a short distance away lies another target range, China's terrestrial strike simulation zone. This site poses the greatest concern for India because China has built replicas of land-based targets here, such as dummy runways, radar complexes, systems that track incoming aircraft, power grids like electricity supply towers, and fighter jet hangars for parking aircraft. These aren't random, they're key first-line defense elements. In simple terms, if runways and jet hangars are neutralized in a conflict, a country's air force can't respond. If radars fail, missile defense systems collapse as seen in recent operations, where electronic warfare units disrupted enemy tracking and communication. Finally, disrupting power grids could halt electricity nationwide, shutting down essential services like communications and healthcare. A nation could be brought to its knees before full engagement begins. We have further evidence that China isn't doing this solely against America. It's a major threat to India too. In 2006, a Google Earth image leak showed China had created an exact replica of Aksai Chin in its Ningxia province for rehearsals. This is where China regularly trains soldiers to defend if India attempts to reclaim the area. Over the years, China has gradually encircled India from all sides, positioning itself at every entry point. China maintains 37 secret military sites at strategic locations, enabling near-instant aerial responses against India. These include runways and helipads like the Shigatse Peace Airport, just hours from India's Sikkim, and the Ningxi Mainling Airport, right on Arunachal's border. Some bases are so close that Chinese jets could reach Indian territory in 6 to 7 minutes. Additionally, near the Ladakh border, China has built all-weather highways and rail networks to ensure unrestricted military movements. Reports from the Galwan standoff indicate China deployed 38 armed robotic units nearby, with 88 robot soldiers now stationed there. Yes, robot soldiers with tank-like wheels for any terrain equipped with automated systems for precise operations. Imagine the scale of China's preparations, making the desert ships a warning for India too. These aren't just dummy models, they're rehearsals for large-scale scenarios. China has already begun scripting such stories, but how prepared are we to counter this? Yes, we're expanding road networks, building strategic tunnels like Sela, and upgrading Air Force stations in the Northeast. However, the scale at which China creates real-life models for regular drills far surpasses our efforts, creating a significant disadvantage for India. It's high time we recognize that China's threat isn't a distant future issue, it's real and happening now. Interestingly, India's intelligence agency RAW and America's CIA are collaborating in a quiet effort against China in the Himalayas given the situation. Now I know it's surprising, but challenging times require strong measures. The same CIA that once operated against India is now partnering to contain China. What do you think is China's ultimate goal here? Does this make you worried about future tensions? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Like always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give us a big thumbs up and leave us some love in the comments section. To keep up to date with all of our awesome videos, be sure to hit subscribe and turn your notifications on to never miss a thing. Until next time, do take good care of yourself.